Hello everyone, welcome back to Legendary Lunacy. This is episode number 10, I believe? Yes, no, episode 11 of the Halloween Countdown. Yesterday we did some scary stories, and today I was going to try and do something new, but I can feel myself getting more and more congested, and I'm starting to feel sick, so we're going to do something similar. While looking for more stories to read, I found a script for, I call it Stronger Men. It is a Call of Duty tribute script for a YouTube video that never got filmed, but it's not too late. If you're a fan of Call of Duty Black Ops, the Zombie Level 5, where you play as John F. Kennedy, Fidel Castro, Richard Nixon, and Robert McNamara fighting off zombies from the Pentagon, you might enjoy this script. It's a little goofy, yes. It's a little wild. But, hell, it's my channel. I'll do whatever I want. So, let's go ahead and, let's get into this. Is this going to be great? Probably not. Is it going to be enjoyable? I sure as hell think so. Let's see what you think. Film opens on an overview of Washington, D.C. We hear a voice talking, which we later realize is JFK. He talks about his family, the people of the USA, and finally, the recent Cuban Missile Crisis. He sums it up with, "I knew I wouldn't let that crisis end this beautiful country, and I was right. Unfortunately, another crisis lurks just around the corner." We cut to JFK, the 35th President of the United States, in the White House, telling one of the guards he is ready to go to the Pentagon. His guards walk him out to the limousine, and he enters the back. Cut to the Pentagon, where we see Mr. Kennedy is now pulling up. His guards get out and help him into the Pentagon, 2 at his side and 2 keeping the reporters at bay. As Kennedy and his 2 guards walk up towards the building, Kennedy looks at his 2 guards and thanks them for their help. "No problem, Mr. Kennedy. Just doing our job," replies one of the guards, whose badge reads Peterson. Peterson walks with Kennedy to a meeting room, while the other 3 guards watch the front door. Peterson waits outside the room, and Kennedy walks in with the Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara. Inside there is a man in military type BDUs. He is leaning on the back legs of his chair. His face is unseen. Kennedy and McNamara sit down across from him at the table. Sorry. Kennedy says something, as if questioning him. When the man answers, Kennedy smiles, and the man leans forward in his chair and reveals his face, Fidel Castro, a huge grin across his face. Kennedy and Castro shake hands, and then McNamara asks why they're being so friendly. Castro says what happened was in the past, and now they should look to the future. About that time, another voice is heard from across the room. The lights turn on, and Richard Nixon is revealed to be the man, and he walks over to the table. He sits down and asks Kennedy why he asked him to come to this meeting. Castro asks the same thing about Nixon, saying he has nothing to do with their discussion. Kennedy replies simply with, "Well, I've always said, keep your enemies close, but remember their names." McNamara steps around the table and looks at Castro. He says something along the lines of, "Enough small talk. We brought you here." Kennedy interrupts him, saying, "In good heart." McNamara picks up with, "In good heart, to discuss the recent crisis. Now I understand it may be a touchy subject, but..." This time he is cut off, but it is by a thud at the front door. Nixon spins around in his chair, questioning what it may be. Kennedy says it can't be too bad, that maybe someone fell or something. About then, a loud moan is heard, then screaming and gunshots. The 4 men stand and Kennedy runs to the door to open it, but the window on the door shatters, as arms shoot in, trying to grab Kennedy. Kennedy stumbles back to the group. McNamara shouts out in anger, "What the hell are those?" Kennedy stands and steadies himself, replying, "Well, boys, it appears we've got zombies. That's our problem." He walks over to a wall and presses a button. The wall opens up to reveal a hidden cache of guns. Machine guns, long rifles, assault rifles, pistols, grenades, knives, everything you can think of. Castro grabs a .44 Magnum revolver. McNamara grabs the M16. Kennedy picks up a side-by-side double-barrel shotgun, and Nixon pulls out a water pistol. This is not my best work. Don't judge. McNamara tells Nixon that he needs a real gun, but instead he grabs a knife, a K-bar knife. The 4 proceed to the center of the room and stand back-to-back on the table. McNamara asks Kennedy for any last words, to which Kennedy replies, "Well, pray not for easier lives. Pray instead to be stronger men." The doors all bust in, as the zombies swarm the room. Kennedy fires and reloads with accuracy and speed. McNamara shouts, "For America!" as he sprays the horde with his M16. Castro laughs as he picks off zombies one by one. Nixon shouts random things as he slices and dices zombies himself. The horde thins, but the four continue on firing, and soon the horde is completely obliterated. So the four restock. Castro pockets the 44 and grabs a Car 15. McNamara pulls an M1917. Sorry, I'm very tired and I'm very congested and I want to go to sleep. And it puts an M1917 in his belt. Nixon grabs a Colt Commander and a Thompson submachine gun. Kennedy puts back his double barrel and grabs an M1 Garand and a 45. The four head out the door, McNamara in the front, followed by Nixon, then Castro, then Kennedy. They run down the hallway to the elevators, mowing down zombies they see along the way. The elevator doors open up to reveal four soldiers and Peterson. The four officials join them on the elevator, and they proceed to the lowest floor. Peterson has a 9mm, and the other soldiers have M16s. But the elevator suddenly stops, and the power goes out. McNamara says the power must have gone out, and they must turn it back on to reach the emergency tunnel. Kennedy tells Peterson, Castro, and Nixon to come with him to find the power supply. McNamara takes the four soldiers to find more ammunition, since they're running low. Peterson is the first to climb out of the elevator, followed by Nixon, and then Castro, and finally Kennedy. The three proceed through the hallway, turning here and there, and finally they run into a catwalk of the main room of the Pentagon. Peterson points out that the room is overrun with zombies, which is pretty accurate. The room is almost full of zombies, and across the catwalk, Nixon sees a power room. The door is wide open. Silently, Kennedy and Peterson rappel down to the floor and sneak around, avoiding the zombies. Castro and Nixon watch from the catwalk, both of them on edge. Castro sees Kennedy rounding a corner straight towards a few zombies and cries out to warn him. He realizes his mistake as all the zombies look up at him. The zombies near Kennedy turn away and lurch towards Castro, leaving a clear path for Kennedy and Peterson to get to the electrical room. Once inside, Kennedy watches the door as Peterson works on the electrical system. Once he finally gets the electricity back on, he hears a roar and turns to see Kennedy fighting off a zombie. Peterson shoots it in the head and locks the door behind himself and Kennedy. The zombies are now headed straight for them, so Kennedy and Peterson use the fire escape to get to the catwalk. Once at the top, Kennedy and Peterson use a fire axe to break the door off its hinges, and they throw it down the stairwell, knocking down a few zombies. They sprint across the catwalk to Castro and Nixon, and the four head back to the elevators. They encounter McNamara and three of the soldiers on the way back to the elevators. Before they can make it back, however, they notice a horde lumbering towards them slowly. Peterson says they must fight their way through the horde, but before he can finish his sentence, Nixon steps forward. We close in on Nixon's eyes and realize he is hallucinating. Jesus Christ, this is a really bad script. We see through the point of view of Nixon and see that he is seeing himself in a field of hippies, all of which are coming towards him with protesting signs bashing Nixon and the government. We snap back to reality, and we see Nixon shooting and slashing all the zombies. Even when they begin to bite him and wound him, he continues. We see him pull the pin on a grenade as it rolls out of his hand and falls forward. The explosion blows a hole through the ground, and Nixon rushes forward, falling into the hole, taking most of the zombies with him. Kennedy and McNamara salute him, followed quickly by the others. The group makes their way through the hallways back to the elevator. They press the button for the elevators, two of which open at the same time. Zombies rush out, each small pack grabbing one of the soldiers. The others storm into the only clear elevator and head down to the bottom floor. The five of them, Kennedy, McNamara, Castro, Peterson, and the unnamed soldier, finally reach the basement level. When the elevator doors open up, they see a pile of rubble on the ground in front of them, bodies scattered all around. Something at the top of the pile moves, and the five ready their weapons. The soldier turns on his flashlight to reveal Nixon in his tattered suit. McNamara and Kennedy start towards him to give assistance, but Peterson objects, pointing out his bite marks. The soldier hits the lights and turns them on, and the group gets a good view of zombified Nixon. McNamara sees Nixon smiling and states there must still be some good in him. Kennedy objects, but McNamara continues, not noticing Nixon getting closer behind him. Zombie Nixon grabs McNamara and bites his neck before throwing him across the room. McNamara slides into the wall and continues to bleed out while the other heroes continue to fight. Castro dual wield. This is a weird script. I forgot how weird this was. Castro dual wields a 44 Magnum. Dual wields 44 Magnums. Peterson and the soldier with their M16s, and Kennedy fires rounds with his M1 Garand. Nixon keeps on fighting, however, proving their bullets aren't doing much. Kennedy and Castro think for a second, then look above Nixon. His fall through the floor tore. I'm gonna restart that sentence. Kennedy and Castro think for a second, then look above Nixon to see that his fall through the floor tore wiring from the walls and the ground. Here we go. Kennedy looks and sees the main release water valve on the wall, and after the 4 survivors scramble above ground, turns the valve, shooting water at zombie Nixon, sending him reeling to the low-hanging wires, electrocuting him. Kennedy shuts the valve off and gets down onto the floor, as do Castro, Peterson, and the soldiers. The 4 walk towards each other to check ammo for wounds, and suddenly the now zombified McNamara grabs Peterson and bites his shoulder, which makes him tense up and pull the trigger in his gun, accidentally shooting the soldier once in the side and once in the leg. Kennedy draws his 45 and Castro draws his 44 Magnum, and the two shoot zombie McNamara in the head, killing him. Once McNamara is confirmed dead, they begin checking Peterson, who is already showing signs of infection. Peterson tells the final 3 to go on, that he'll distract the horde. Kennedy begins to object, but Castro stops him, telling him to honor the man's bravery. Kennedy nods, stands, and salutes his soldier, who salutes back. Kennedy and Castro help the soldier to the tunnel and seal the gate behind them. Peterson reaches into his bag, pulling out a strain of grenades. Zombie moaning can be heard in the background as Peterson drinks from a flask. He holds the flask in one hand and pulls the pins on one of the grenades in the other. As he holds the trigger in one hand and drinks with the other, we hear the ding of the elevator as the moaning, which has been growing this entire time, reaches its climax as the horde exits the elevator and heads towards Peterson. He drops the grenades as we watch it fall to a pile of other grenades. Kennedy, Castro, and the soldier fall from a deafening explosion, but are quickly up on their feet again and heading towards the exit. They stop after a while to break. Castro drinks from a flask of his own, while Kennedy bandages the soldier. Kennedy asks the soldier's name and who he is. The soldier removes his helmet and gas mask and states his name and rank, Private Austin Glaves. I'll explain that in a minute. Kennedy smiles and nods, reaching out his hand to shake, and Kennedy says, "It's an honor, Corporal Glaves." He promoted him if that wasn't clear. Anyway, I don't know, I'm explaining this. The 3 exit the tunnel a while later into a field. Kennedy pulls out a device and presses a button on it before putting it away again. Castro helps Graves down to the ground. Kennedy sits beside the 2 and passes down a water bottle. Shortly after, a helicopter lands and the 3 board. The camera follows them, revealing the war-torn city called Washington, D.C. Kennedy looks at the commanding officer of the chopper, asking what the damage is so far. The man replies that he's not sure, but the virus is not contained to D.C. Castro asks where they're going, and the man answers, "Somewhere safe." Glaive looks from the helicopter to see zombies running in the streets. Glaive looks at Kennedy and asks if there's such a place anymore. The camera follows the helicopter as it flies away, and the screen fades to black. Yeah, that's it. That's the script. Well, I guess you could call it a script. It's an outline, really, if it's anything. Is it great? No, it's not great. That one is dated 2013, I believe. Yeah, 2013. So that's my freshman year of high school when I wrote that one. I think. Maybe I'm not reading there. I can't wear my glasses right now. When I'm congested and I have the mask on, it fogs up, so I'll check later if it's wrong. Oh, the Glaves thing. The Private Austin Glaves is another nod to another person I went to high school with, another buddy of mine, who he is now, I think he's TikTok famous. So Austin, if you ever see this, hi buddy, I wrote a story and put you in it. I don't know if I ever told you that, because I don't know if you were a Call of Duty fan, but I know we had talked about, most of my friends in high school knew I liked to write scripts, and I wanted to film stuff. We just never really got around to doing it if it wasn't, like, for a class. So I just kind of based that, the Unknown Soldier. I didn't really base him because it's a short enough story. It didn't really have a character development. It was just, I was like, who could I make the Unknown Soldier who looks like a soldier? And Austin was always this big, like, this big muscly guy in high school. So you're in the story, Austin. I miss you. Hope you're doing good, bro. I've got another story here I could read, but we're already at the 16-minute mark, I think. Oh, this one could work. So this is another class project deal from 2013, creative writing class. We had to write a sequel to a classic horror story, or a sequel to a classic story. So I wrote a sequel to Monkey's Paw. 412 words. The storm grew fierce in the midnight wind. Mr. White looked out across the field, not sure what path to take. He looked to the bed, his wife having finally drifted off to sleep, tear stains running down her cheeks. He slipped over the nightstand, pulled out his pocket knife, and cut the ropes from around her wrists. He had tied her hands so that she couldn't harm herself. She hardly seemed to notice. He left her a letter, setting it on the nightstand next to the bed. After placing a kiss on her lips, he grabbed the small rucksack he had packed earlier and headed down to the den. Before leaving, he set the sack down and slipped on an overcoat, then he threw his pack over his shoulders and headed out to the horse stables. The rain seemed to be getting heavier and further as he went from the house. He reached into his pocket, rubbing his hand across the furry object in his pocket. It sent chills down his spine, but it sent a wave of reassurance through him. He walked to the third stall, grabbed a saddle, then saddled up the horse in the stall, Whiskey. Within a few minutes, Mr. White was on Whiskey, and the two were racing across the field through the storm. The rain continued, beating down hard on Mr. White, yet he continued on. It seemed like the old hidden path was going on forever. Soon enough, though, Mr. White saw lights up ahead, and suddenly lightning shot across the sky, spooking Whiskey and sending them both into the mud. The home was about 50 feet away, and Mr. White stood to walk there, but could barely stand. He looked down and saw a stick had impaled his leg. Whiskey stood and ran, and Mr. White trudged towards the home, the paw in his left hand. Barbara heard a knock at the door. "Who'd be around at this hour?" She opened the door to a man, muddy and soaked and bleeding. He stuck out his hand, dropping a small, white, fuzzy hand into her palm. He then withdrew his hand into his overcoat, pulled out a revolver, put it to his temple, and breathed a sigh of relief and pulled the trigger. "Oh my God!" she cried. "What happened? What was that?" her husband Gerald screamed as he ran to the room. "Oh, what's that?" Sorry, no, what was that? "What's that?" It's like a little monkey's hand or something, but what is it for?" she said. Her husband shook his head, scratching his chin. I wish I knew." And that's the end of that one. Very short, sweet, to the point. Again, not my best work. I need to sit down and write more. Because like the drinking story from last night, I think is one of my best works. It's not perfect, but I think it's one of my better pieces. That one's not great, but for a short little page-and-a-half story, it's not better. It's not even a page-and-a-half. It's just really just one page. And then the Call of Duty one's not great. I should probably just toss that one away. Anyways, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I know the videos are kind of like deteriorating, but I promise this weekend I'm going to try and do a little bit of work, get some stuff scheduled ahead of time, or get some research done before I film, so hopefully these videos will get a little bit better here soon. I'm also working on getting a Patreon set up, so if you would like to donate to my Patreon, I can start making more monies, and if I start making more monies, I can start doing this full time. And if I'm doing that, then maybe I can start working on actual projects like scripts and like I've got. I figured I would try and read some of my horror scripts and stuff I wrote from high school and whatnot, but if you guys like these, I've got some scripts that are really long that I could try and turn into like short films, which I think would be fun to record and put up on YouTube. But then again, it's all up to you guys. So I just want to say once again, thanks again for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed tonight's video. If anything, maybe it was laughable. But if not, thank you for sticking around this long. I've noticed a lot of my videos, it seems like are getting people, according to the view times, a lot of people are starting the videos and then they're stopping about halfway through or so, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay. It means I'm not doing something right, so I need to try a little bit harder, do a little bit better. So if you guys would please leave comments down below, let me know what you think. Let me know what I need to improve on. But thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night.